why don't you have Bogdan locked in? Because I think ultimately he provides such a valuable skill set, potentially coming off the bench. Like, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't mind starting him and you run Trae, Bogdan, Hunter, Collins, and Capela. That'd be fine, but I wonder if there's enough shot creation coming off the bench.
Well, usually like every year, the Southeast Division is the preview that we are least excited to record, because it's just usually been like Miami and then all of these other teams suck. But now we're coming off a season in which the Atlanta Hawks surprised and made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Miami Heat made it to the finals the year before. The Charlotte Hornets have LaMelo Ball. The Washington Wizards completely reinvented themselves. And the Orlando Magic still exist. So at least 4 of the 5 teams we are excited to talk about. As always, we'll go in alphabetical order. So let's start with the Hawks coming off of that surprise run to the Eastern Conference Finals. One of the things that proved very critical for them was the amount of depth that they had. You know, they got off to a really slow start last season because basically all of the guys they brought in got hurt right away. And then, fire Lloyd Pierce, promote Nate McMillan to the interim job. Their guys get healthy. They very quietly went, I think, 27-11 over the second half of the season. The foundation for this type of a playoff run was there. So now moving forward, knock on wood, everyone is healthy going into this season. So who should their starting lineup be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be Trae at the 1, obviously, Capela at the 5, and then John Collins at the 4 as the 3 that are undoubtedly locked in. Mm-hmm. And people might be surprised to know that I don't have Bogdan locked in as a full-time starter yet. Oh, wait a second. DeAndre Hunter as well should also be locked in. It's the 2-guard situation with Kevin Huerter and Bogdan Bogdanovic, and you can even throw Cam Reddish into that as well. Why don't you have Bogdan locked in? Because I think ultimately he provides such a valuable skill set, potentially coming off the bench. Like, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't mind starting him and you run Trae, Bogdan, Hunter, Collins, and Capela. That'd be fine, but I wonder if there's enough shot creation coming off the bench in that scenario, because Kevin Huerter, while he has improved on the ball, I don't really know if he's a guy you can rely on to get you consistent buckets over the course of 20 minutes of bench play. So yeah, I'm probably leaning towards starting Huerter and then having Bogdan come off the bench. But I mean, if you want to go with just the best right off the bat, then it's Trae, Bogdan, Hunter, Collins, and Capela. I will make this note, Brian. I still like Hunter more at the 4 than I do the 3.
Yeah, me too. And I think that's what makes it tricky. I agree with you that Collins, especially coming off of that giant contract, is locked into the starting lineup. Correct. As long with Trae and Capela. So I'm with you that the 2 and the 3 spots are where the big question marks are. And, I'm looking back at last year because of all of their injuries. Bogdan only played 44 games. DeAndre Hunter played only 23. Cam Reddish played only 26. So they didn't really have to worry about this problem as much last year, where it's we have a full complement of our players and we actually have to decide who's starting, who's coming off the bench. Because when Hunter was healthy, he started 19 of his 23 games. And Cam Reddish was healthy, he started 21 of his 26. Bogdan started 27 of his 44. Trae, Capela, and John Collins were the only 3 who started in every single one of the games they played. They started all 63 for each one of them. Huerter also started 49 of the 69. So they started 24 different starting lineups last year because of all of these injuries. So I'm just fascinated to see how these decisions play out.
Yeah.
Because, especially coming off of that run, you could argue maybe we just keep a good thing going. We had, they did 4 different starting lineups in the playoffs because, again, DeAndre Hunter got hurt pretty early. And they did their most common one, and this is the one that they used to knock out the Sixers, was Trae, Huerter, Bogdan, Collins, Capela. So it's going to be a tricky balance for them because you've got guys who you want to develop in Huerter, in Hunter, in Cam Reddish, But then you also have more of a win now guy like Bogdan Bogdanovic. So which do you prioritize in the regular season is a tricky question. I'm with you in leaning Bogdan off the bench for the shot creation, because you're still going to have Lou Williams coming off the bench as well, who will help, but you have D-Line right now as well. So you do have some options. Like, I don't think the Hawks offense is going to crater without Trae like it has in past years. But
you have Gallo too.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, they do have guys who can create their own shot. But I do think, Bogdan versus like DeAndre Hunter coming off the bench or Cam Reddish coming off the bench, I think it makes more sense for him in that. Like, I think he could thrive in that role better than some of these young guys can. Whereas if you put these younger guys in the starting lineup, like Hunter, I think ideally you want him in there for the defense alone.
Yeah.
Like having that type of a versatile wing defender, or just like 2 through 4 defender, honestly. Like, with all due respect to John Collins, if he's guarding Kevin Durant, you're probably in some trouble. So Hunter, I think, ideally is in there. And then, I mean, we saw it last year. Like, Kevin Huerter is a freaking bucket, man. And like putting him and Trae together in the backcourt just stretches defenses beyond their breaking point. Yep. So I would lean that way as well. But I know it's, balancing the Hunter, Bogdan, Huerter, Reddish, how they squeeze all minutes for all 4 of those guys in, I think is going to be fascinating. And I do wonder if Gallo starts to get squeezed a little bit so they can make more minutes for Hunter as a backup because Gallo is only under contract. I mean, he signed this year at $20.5 million or so. Next year, 21.5, but I believe only $5 million of that is guaranteed. And if maybe they signed him as a way to hedge against potentially losing John Collins, but now that you've re-signed John Collins, at some point this team is just going to become absurdly expensive, and you're going to have to start making some tricky decisions. And I wonder if Gallo is kind of the first one to get bumped out the door.
I mean, we've been saying this for a while. This team screams for a consolidation trade. It really does. I mean, look. At some point, not even looking into Gallo, like Onyeka Okongwu is also going to get squeezed at some point because John Collins is going to play some 5, backing up Capela here and there. Like, that's not going to work out. Jalen Johnson and Sharife Cooper, I know we'll get to them a little bit later. Mm-hmm. Like, if they come in and are NBA ready, that's 2 more guys that you kind of need to carve out minutes for. This team is tremendously deep. That's great, but it's almost too deep, and I'm putting that in quote unquote, because you need depth during the regular season, but as we know in the playoffs, you need to go like 9 tops deep in your rotation. So if you have 12 players who are all worthy of minutes, that's cool, but then I would rather have a top established fleshed out 9 and then have bit players surrounding that. I think they really need to look into it, especially the front court. The front court is just so loaded and stocked. And I get it. Like, the Hawks fans are going to be like, well, it's great. We have competent players all around. Yeah, absolutely. Compared to where you used to be, that's great. Objectively great. But you made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. So I presume that the next step is making the NBA Finals and then potentially winning the championship. Mm-hmm. And I could just see this developing into an issue, not just in terms of having too many cooks, but guys want to get their shot as well. Like, you can't expect a guy like Onyeka Okongwu, who's drafted 6 overall, just keep being patient. Like, he got drafted there for a reason. Like, he is a lot better than if he averages like 12 or 15 minutes per game. Like, that is just not going to be enough. Then you have Jalen Johnson, Sharife Cooper. If they turn into players, they're going to be like, no, we need to establish ourselves in this league. We're good enough to play here. So, like, give us more minutes. It's going to be the same thing with the Huerter Reddish thing. Like, Gallo is still a veteran who's very good offensively, so he too is not going to settle for 20 minutes a game or whatever. I love that they went on this kumbaya, like, I don't know what to call it, like, experience last year. Everyone was completely aligned. I just don't think it is reasonable to expect that kind of mentality to move forward when you have so many players now just looking at those minutes going, what's my role going to be? Where are my shots going to be? How many minutes am I going to play? Not to say that the Hawks, I'm not trying to predict that they're going to have chemistry issues. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that guys want to play. That is why they're in the NBA. They don't want to be on the bench.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't want to say like injuries helped them, because they could have really used DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish in the playoffs, especially against the Bucks. But, it helped them to the extent that they didn't have to tackle these rotation questions to the extent that they might have to this year if everyone stays healthy. Like in the playoffs, Hunter only played 5 games. Cam Reddish only played 4 games. So there wasn't, how do we fit minutes for Bogdan and Huerter and Gallo? Because it's like, oh, well, we just need to lean on those guys because our other option is Solomon Hill.
Who played 1,500 minutes. Brian, if he plays a single minute this season, it's because they just completely broke down injury-wise once again, or something went wrong.
Yeah, because I will just read down, like, I'm looking at Basketball Insider, so I'm just going by descending salary here. But I can make a case for, without even including the rookies, these are their top 12 guys, I believe. It's Collins, Gallo, Capela, Bogdanovic, Delon Wright, Trae Young, Hunter, Okongwu, Lou Williams, Cam Reddish, Kevin Huerter, Gorgui Dieng. I can make a case for all of those guys being in an NBA rotation. And then you also have to squeeze in Jalen Johnson, Sharife Cooper. I don't believe he's signed a deal yet, so I'm not sure if he's going to be a 2-way deal or actually one of the 15 under contract. Solomon Hill, as you said, should absolutely, there's the only way he should get minutes is if half of the team tears some ligament. Because he should be the 15th man. He can be a nice veteran locker room presence. Yep. Great, awesome. But that leads me into Jalen Johnson and Sharife Cooper. Sharife was one of the biggest surprises of the draft, falling as far as he did. And then both of these guys look great in summer league. So what are your expectations for them this season? Like, how do the Hawks find minutes for these guys given the rest of their rotation?
So it really comes down to where the Hawks are. I mean, what they want to do. Because they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, I assume that they are in a win now position, to at least to some capacity. So if they are, Delon Wright is probably the priority to come off the bench, as well as Lou Williams. But if you're looking at it from a long-term angle, I would want to put an emphasis on putting Sharife Cooper out there. I know he's on a 2-way. You're absolutely right. So that's the thing they also need to keep an eye on moving forward. Because I think he has the same passing chops as Trae Young. His court vision is outstanding. What he doesn't have is a legitimate 3-ball, at least not yet. Like, the mechanics are a little bit off. I don't want to say it's a shot that can never develop, because it isn't that broken, if you catch my drift. Like, it's just a good shooting coach, and over maybe a 1 or 2 year period, I think he could get there. And so if you prioritize the development of Sharife Cooper, especially utilizing his passing vision, you can have this type of setup where you, at all 48 minutes throughout the game, have elite passing from the point guard spot, where you can come in as Sharife Cooper and actually just mimic the same sets as Trae Young is utilizing, and kind of be a star at that backup role as one of the league's premier backup point guards. So I would want them to just find an excuse to put Cooper on the floor. And if they don't, I understand why. Like, then you're looking at the right now window, but I think it'd be a little bit of a waste. I think you need to think long term, especially with Trae being so young, like Okongwu being so young. Like, you need to look at where are my key guys going to be in a couple of years, not necessarily from the now. Like, I understand that Hawks fans want to build on the Eastern Conference Finals. I wouldn't hate it if they didn't make that again. Like, if they took a step back results-wise, but their young guys took a major step up in their production and their development, I would prioritize that, because that means that you can have a longer window moving forward. Right. Yeah, that would be a more meaningful development than any one single playoff run that doesn't end in a title. Exactly. And I know that you didn't put this on the email in terms of questions, but I want to carve out some time for this, because I raised this when John Collins signed his contract. I think it's worth reiterating. You and I have been a little bit down on Collins as a player, but I still want them to lean into what he is offensively, because he is a tremendous offensive talent. Like, I know that a lot of people were all up like, oh, Collins is getting it. Like, in the playoffs, he played well, and he did. But he only took 10 shots per game over 32 minutes. Like, I don't care how you slice it. That's a $125 million contract for a guy whose primary skill set is scoring the basketball. Limiting him to 10 shots per game is not going to give you enough value for what you paid him. I don't care. And additionally, if you only give him that type of shots, you're also going to diminish his trade value, which won't help anyone, especially if you're looking to consolidate later on. So I would make it such a priority to basically put the ball in John Collins's hands off of cuts and lobs and whatnot, and like basically force 15, 16, 17 shots his way every single night. He needs to be a guy who kind of aims for 26 points a game. Yeah,
I mean, it's going to be interesting just overall chemistry wise between these rotation questions. How do you fit everyone in? And then also coming off of this run, how does that hierarchy shake out? Because I mean, we remember back in like January, I think it was Sam Amick and Chris Kirshner of The Athletic had that report, you know, like John Collins and Trae Young got into a confrontation in the locker room about, you know, Trae Young's control of the offense and his balancing his scoring versus his playmaking. You know, clearly after Nate McMillan took over, Trae found a better balance. And this Hawks team, as you said, the vibes were great last year, especially, you know, they had that like dog in them where they just kept being underrated or kept being counted out. And they were just like, we're here. We are announcing our presence to the NBA. We are not to be taken lightly anymore. And it leads me to my last point about the Hawks. Like, I'm looking at FanDuel right now. They're plus 4,000 to win the title next year. That is 12th in the NBA. In the East, they're behind Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Philly, Miami. I get all of those, but they're also behind Dallas. And that's where you just lose me. I just cannot. I know Dallas has Luka, but a Hawks team that is this deep, coming off of the run they had last year, only got deeper this offseason. Yep. I just feel like the betting market is sleeping on the Atlanta Hawks.
I would agree. That is preposterous. Also, they have better coaching. Now, the one thing I will say about all this, I recently have seen a lot of like the Trae Luka comps flying around, especially on Twitter again, because Trae made the Eastern Conference Finals. Like that sort of that's being used as an argument for why Trae is better than Luka, and I just want to kind of crush that. Like,
no.
It's not, can we agree that the depth of Atlanta is like, if you remove Luka and Trae from their respective teams and you just play like the Hawks and Mavs, the Hawks will just annihilate Dallas immediately.
It'd be a sweep.
Right, exactly. Like it's a supporting cast, and that's not to take anything away from Trae. Like, he's closing in. Like, those two are close, but Luka just is this bit better. Like, the size alone does it.
Luka is an MVP candidate. Trae is an all-star. It's like there is no conceivable, not I guess absolute ceiling outcome. Trae gets to that level, but like I don't see a world where he's going to be a top 5 player in the NBA. That's not to disrespect Trae. He is a clear top 20 player, but Luka is, you know, in that top 5 or close to that top 5, if not in there already.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. But yes, their supporting cast, the Hawks have done a much better job building around Luka or around Trae than the Mavs have around Luka. And that's, you know, that's good. It shouldn't be held against Luka, and it shouldn't be held against Trae. Like, good on Trae for getting to a better team than Luka did.
Right, and Hawks fans just love the fact that they actually have an organization that knows how to build around their superstar. I mean, I don't understand why that discussion is even coming up. Like, Hawks fans don't care. It doesn't matter. Like, you have the better team, and you have a better front office, and you have a better coaching staff. You win.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, don't focus on anyone else but yourself, because you've got some good stuff going. You should just enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that every Mavs fan are like, I want to be in your shoes right now.
Yeah, absolutely.